Yeah, and on it, those sound like amazing experiences. It's super cool that you guys are learning about like different cultures and different perspectives, and that's kind of what like study abroad is all about. Um, I'm glad that you're having that experience. And thank you so much for talking about that with us today. So the question is, what has been the most surprising culture shock or difference that you've noticed so far?
I don't know, for me personally, I don't think I've really had culture shock here. I've been here before with my high school, so I've kind of been like used to it. So I kind of once I got here, I just kind of fit like right into place. I guess like the biggest thing is just they eat later here. So it was a weird just a bit to make the switch, but
I had shock before because like before we left because I've never been out of the country. So this was my first time leaving the US and I was gonna leave for 5 months. So I was like super freaked out to go, almost backed out, but just went through with it because I knew I'd be with the other two. But yeah, once we got here, I it doesn't feel much different. It's just like you're living in another
Mhm.
area where they speak another language.
It's also just with the family, you sometimes have to just get used to like how they do
Mhm.
things too, which I don't know if I'd necessarily consider that like culture shock because like for host family they have just like certain ways to do the laundry. French people don't really want you to do your own laundry. They'll like our host families just like they're always just like no, we'll do it for you. So I guess that was like a little weird at first.
Yeah, it's just fitting into the way that they live for a little bit.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's just noticing how different our interactions with people are. Just because like I have a friend from South Africa and she was talking about how you don't like look at people older than you in the eyes. So like every time I talk to her, I have to like look away. Not have to, it's just like she prefers that. And just like how like we greet people in France is kind of different than the US. Just like we have to say hi when we enter stores, always say goodbye. It's just like there's like a code and you just kind of follow it. It's like an unwritten code.
Those are very important aspects to kind of like take into consideration when you're studying abroad. I'm glad you're talking about this because that is such an interesting factor, especially with like culture shock.
And so all of the not all of the classes, but most of our classes are with international students, but we have the option to take classes with French students. So right now, Britt and I are taking a class in English with some French students. We haven't really had a chance to interact with them yet, just because, like, when you're in school, you don't really. It's just you
It's
go.
like a L3 class, which for them is kind of like a senior class. So they all know each other kind of, and it's their last year, so it's a little hard sometimes to kind of like become friends with them because they already have like they've all like had the classes together, so they all know each other really well. Um, but yeah, for the most part, it's international students. But Isla and I do take a class with French students.
And we have met up with some French students because we do with French coffee hour, we did an exchange with medical students. So we met up with them. But yeah, like they said, for the most part, all my classes are with international students, but all of our professors are French for the most part.
And also, like, we have some events with other French students. So I've been trying to meet other French students and just hang out with them. So that's been a really nice like change, just to like have more French connections with people.
So my name is Fanny Roncal. I'm a professor here in the Department of World Languages in Spanish. And I am also the advisor for students who want to study abroad in Spanish-speaking countries. So it's so good to hear experiences in Greece, in France now. So just to say that in Spain, in Spanish-speaking countries, we usually have some students studying abroad. And right now, I think we have about more than 6 students studying in Spain, in Segovia, in Alicante, and Sevilla. But those are not the only options. We have options also in Argentina. We have a student who's going to Argentina next fall. In spring 2023, we'll have the short-term program in Cuba. It has been approved. I know some of you were signed up for that program, but it couldn't go because of the pandemic and some political situations in Cuba. But if things are getting better, as we know, that's good for all of us. So keep that in mind. Cuba interim program, spring 2023. And if you wanna study in any Spanish-speaking countries, Segovia, Alicante, Sevilla, Cordoba, Cuba, semester programs, please come and talk to me. I'm more than glad to have a conversation from Monday to Friday from 2:30 to 3:30. And if you have any questions now that I can help you with, I'll be more than glad to.
So my experience studying abroad, I studied abroad in Spain and Peru. I spent more time in Peru than Spain. So speaking a little bit about that, I guess I can start off by saying I am a Spanish major and international business major. So having the experience in a different country will definitely help in the future with just my language skills, and also with international business, working with other cultures, and having an understanding of how businesses work in other places. Because obviously studying in the United States, I kind of have only learned about businesses in the United States. So being able to like go abroad and learn about what kind of practices other businesses use has been so incredibly helpful in that aspect. So when I studied abroad in Peru, I stayed with a host family, and I also went to school there with my host sisters. My favorite part about studying in Peru was probably the different sites that we went to. So we went to like the salt flats, which were like these beautiful little pools of salt water that dried out, and they used the salt in like cooking and different beauty products and things like that. Just an absolutely gorgeous place. And then also Machu Picchu, a beautiful mountain where there are different carvings and different man-made architecture. That was just absolutely gorgeous to see as well. The weather also was very nice there in comparison to here, a lot warmer, which is also a plus. Yeah, that was kind of like the best experience I've ever had. I would not trade that experience for anything in the world. So going to Peru was the second study abroad session that I had, and I had to speak in Spanish the entire time I was there. Which was very difficult because at that point my Spanish was not very advanced. I just recently took like Spanish 212 probably, I think is what that would have been. It was very difficult to understand people. They talked very quickly. And what helped me the most in learning my Spanish there and being able to communicate with people was using like my friends and family, not using, that sounds really bad, but utilizing their skills and like what they know about the language that they've been learning their entire life, and learning from what they tell me. So the different vocabulary words that they told me, or things that were like very relevant to just Peru in comparison to like any Spanish speaking country, was like very helpful, because certain words have different translations depending on which country you go to. Like something that was really different for me is in Peru, they say the word popcorn differently. So I learned the word popcorn as palomitas. But I started saying that when we went to the movie theater, and everyone looked at me like I was insane. And I was really confused. And my sister told me like, that is not how we say that word here. And it was definitely just like I was very embarrassed in the moment, but I got over it super quickly because it was just one word. But yeah, I think if I had any tips about going somewhere else and using the language that you're studying, is kind of depend on and lean on the people that are willing to help you. like your family and friends?
Don't feel bad because that's one word that is very different in every country. So in Mexico, palomitas. In Peru, we say cancha.
Say cancha.
Because cancha is a word that has an influence from Quechua, because the Quechua community in Peru is important. So we have lots of Quechuismos in Spanish. So cancha, cancha, cancha perla or cancha. And we have different types of cancha.
Yeah. Yeah, that was another aspect of the movie theater that I thought was really interesting is at the movie theater that I went to, you can get either salty popcorn or sweet popcorn. Those are the two options. And I had never experienced that before because every movie theater I've been to in the United States only offers like salty popcorn. That's another aspect too, is like in Peru, there's a lot of the influence of Quechua, which obviously contributes to the language, but that was taught in the school that I went to as well. That was like one of the classes or the courses that was offered. So in the school that I went to, it was really interesting. Like it was set outside. So like instead of having like individual rooms in a giant building that is either air conditioned or heated, it was like this kind of rectangle in the middle that was just open air. There was no ceiling or like any walls to that little section. And then each of the classrooms were kind of like designated around that square. Just like the setting was different and very interesting, but you could walk by each of the classrooms and you could hear like the Quechua class being taught, or you could hear the like mathematics department. It was just like all around each of these different classrooms. It was very interesting.
Emery, which program did you use to go to Peru?
Yeah, it was called World Strides. That's where I learned most of the articulation of the language and where I feel like I excelled the most in my learning. So I definitely would suggest anyone that's learning a language right now to study abroad in a country that speaks that language, because when you're fully immersed, you don't have any other option than to start learning that language.
I can talk about Spain a little bit. So I'm a Spanish education major with a double major, hopefully, in TESOL. They're working on the ruling for that. So I can't double major in TESOL right now, but I'm working on it. But I was drawn towards Spain because my education in high school was very, it was Eurocentric, I guess, and I just kind of fell in love with all the things that I was learning about Spain. And I had 3 years with the same high school Spanish teacher, and she was just a very passionate person about the language and the culture, and she presented it in a way that just made me want to learn more. Like I learned about some of the more the typical things you would hear about, that like when you hear about Spain, it's what your mind is drawn to. Like you think of Madrid and you think of Buñol and the running of the bulls and you think of La Tomatina, but I was drawn to kind of learn more. And as a more introverted person, the idea of going to Segovia with a group of students in Concordia who also attend Concordia and can attend Bethel, to have that sort of group of people who are experiencing the same things, sort of a little comfort to me, as I've only been out of the country one time, and it was with my family in a more vacation-y, touristic-y kind of experience. So going out of the country on my own, experiencing this sort of immersion type thing would be a comfort to me, to have that sort of like group with me in Segovia versus like Sevilla or Alicante when you're more like on your own type of thing. And then in Segovia, I've learned about all the excursions that are built in, and that's just been a factor that's kind of drawn me in to that program. Some things that I've been drawn to.
And I'll share just a little bit on why I was looking at Spain. I think I've never been to Europe. I've been to Costa Rica, and not that other areas in South America wouldn't have been great, because But I just thought that, and I'm a music education major, so only making this happen through the flex year and getting my study abroad done next spring. But a lot of the music that we study and practice in the West is based off of European traditions. And so kind of taking a look at that. In addition, the Segovia program is a part of a smaller community, I think about 53,000 people or something like that. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to focus my studies necessarily on music while I was over there. So I'm focusing studies more on Spanish, but then having music opportunities to engage with the community and with the culture outside of that. And in talking with the program director, Ricardo, he was very intentional about looking at opportunities and making that happen. And I know that that's going to be a great experience for me to be involved in the culture and the music making in that community.
That's the good thing, that depending on your interest, depending on how you feel, we have options, right? We don't have just one place where all of you have to go. If you want to be more, as Elsa was saying, right, in a more safe environment, with people you know, Concordia students, Segovia is such a great experience. The students do peaks there, right? But you can do peak in every study abroad experience. Then some students want to have a more international experience, get to know people from all over the world, have classes with people from all over the world. So they go to Sevilla. Some others want to be closer to the beach because they find some inspiration there. They go to Alicante. Some want to go Las Emery, somewhere else to explore the Latin American parts of the continent. So Cuba, we have had I think one student who spent a semester in Cuba, and we were about to have 2 more, but then the pandemic came and they couldn't go. So options, that's what we want to offer you. And you pick the one that is the best fit for you, okay? What I don't want, I have to say honest about this, is all of you choosing the same thing. During the pandemic, options were reduced, right? So we couldn't be as open everywhere, but now things are getting better finally. And I'm so glad that there is interest, even more interest in studying abroad. So we'll continue working on exactly that option, so that you want to explore Argentina. We have students who are going to Argentina, go to Argentina. Want to go to Chile, Costa Rica. The world is open and wide.
We'll jump in because there was 2 questions about time. Honestly, time has flown by. We're in our 3rd month, and it's gone by really quick.
I feel like what Isla said in the chat explains it pretty well. I mean, we haven't finished our semester yet, but we're already on our 3rd month here, and it kind of just seems wild that we're already on our 3rd month. I feel like I could probably go another 5 months, to be honest, and do a full year. But also I do think I'm gonna feel content after just doing it after the 5 months. But I will just say right now, it goes by very fast. Faster than you think it will.
Yeah, take advantage of everything that you can do in your free time.
And another thing is traveling gets addicting. So you just want to spend more and more time here, just because it's great just to have all these experiences and just to be able to romanticize everything, while also having the strangest opportunities.
Yeah. And then the other question was from Mark about excursions, and
for the school does offer some here to different chateau, and then I think there's one in May to Mont Saint Michel. But for the most part, for excursions for the school, it's kind of more so get-togethers for the international students. But in University of Tours, we have 2 breaks. We had one in February that's a week long, and we have one coming up in April for 2 weeks. So in February, at least, my mom came to visit. So Tori, my mom, and I went down to Toulouse for a couple days. Then we went over to Belgium for a day, and then we went to Florence, Italy for 4 days before coming back. So that was really nice. We got
all in a week.
Yeah, we got to get a lot done then, which has been It's been nice. Definitely when
Mhm.
you're in Europe, you need to take advantage of traveling to their countries because
Yeah.
it's not going to be this cheap to go to a different country from the US
No.
unless you're going to like Canada or
Yeah.
Mexico.
And then the like big break, my mom and sister are coming and we're gonna go to like Paris and do all that, go see Versailles. And then we have the whole month of May open because we end the last week of April. So I have some friends coming. We're gonna go to Greece, do some island hopping, and where's the south of France and Paris for a while. So pretty cool. You can just kind of hop on a flight, an hour-long flight, and be in Greece for whatever, 2-hour flight, whatever, or trains.
Another thing is that there are, I mean, here at least, there are a lot of international students. So during our break, I just decided to go to Bordeaux with some people I've only known for a week. And it was probably one of the greatest times ever, just because like it's a really good opportunity to meet people and also be able to travel.
And then the growth in language, it's really funny because I've had this conversation with a lot of people. I feel like my English has deteriorated here. I often find myself trying to find the word in English, but I can speak it in French. And that's seems to be a common theme for a lot of people. Like most of the people here speak 3 or more languages. And if English is their primary, they think it's going down. Like because we're just constantly speaking in French and learning the slang. It's different, like it takes you out of the classroom. So we found that like, oh, the younger people here don't really order the same way that we were taught, like order at a restaurant. They say something completely different. And so we had to catch on to that really quick because we're like, oh, we can't expose ourselves as Americans. Like the French are gonna hate us. But no, it's been great.
Yeah.
Another important thing though with having like an American accent is just like being able to embrace that like you do have an accent and like not like letting that affect your language skills. Like if you can't say something right, that's okay because like it's not your first language, it's not a bad thing. And that was one of the biggest like learning curves for all of us, I think.
What is your impression and the reaction of common people in France to the Russian invasion to Ukraine?
Our university actually is taking in quite a few Ukrainian refugees into the language programs. So it's actually really interesting, and I feel like there's a lot of support here all over the news and everyone has been talking about it. Like I think here it's like a big deal.
Yeah.
No one's like worried. We just kind of feel bad for everything
Keep
happening.
living life too. Like I was worried about travel like in the future with the war happening, like if I should even consider, and my host family told me, you just got to keep living life. Like it is a big topic and it's really important, but I feel like for the most part we're also all just keep going. And another thing with the French people, like in our accents, they always try and pick up where we're from. So we've had a lady ask if we're from Germany, like all that. So for the most part, if you're speaking the language to them and it's not like super great, like, you're just starting out, as long as you're trying, I've noticed that instantly you get their respect a lot more than if you just start speaking in English. Then they're just gonna whip out their Google Translate on you. And
most French people, I would say, for like service industry jobs that we've like gone to, if we gone to a restaurant, most people speak English. So sometimes they'll try more so just be helpful and be like, English? And it's like, no, it's okay. We can like speak French, but I don't know if anyone's thinking of going to France here, but I would like to put to rest the stereotype that all French people are very rude to you. Like if they can tell you're like an American or something, most people we have met here have been very nice. More so they might ask you like instead like, oh, English, but it's not necessarily to be like rude and be like, wow, you can't speak French. They're just trying to be like, oh, it might be easier for them if we switch to English. So it's more so them trying to be helpful. We've not had a single person here be rude like to us because they can tell like we're a foreigner or something like that, or we get like one little mistake wrong. So
yeah, I don't know if it's similar for Spain or
Egypt. I don't know.
Yeah, there is a stereotype with French people being mean. So.
Yeah, to speak a little bit on like a little bit of a comparison. So like Tori and Bryn, you're talking about like people would assume like, oh, English, going to somewhere where I not only sounded, but very obviously looked like I, was not from there. A lot of times I had, like experiences where, yeah, people even in very, very like broken English, but would try to speak to me in English before like even guessing that I knew any Arabic. Or just like, it's like simple interactions, like checking out at like, at a store or something. People would just like cashiers would kind of like look at me and see that I, hear that I reflexively was like, oh, hello. And they would just like say hi. And then it would be like a silent interaction because they would like assume that I didn't know a lot of Arabic. But when I did try and like speak Arabic with them, a lot of people were like super grateful, grateful for it. A lot of people thought it was funny because I, had a terrible accent, but they like were very like thankful and found it very humorous and was like, oh, that's so nice and that's so good that you're, trying to like learn Arabic, and like they would be really helpful once they did find out that I did know at least a little bit of Arabic.
Right, and I had a very similar experience to that too, is people would see my very light skin and light hair and immediately start speaking in English. And sometimes that can be a strange kind of transaction of like, or wanting to speak Spanish and like bridge that gap, but then also they'd already started speaking English and I got flustered and I didn't know what to do. But yeah, with speaking Spanish, it was definitely like the same kind of concept. Whenever I started speaking Spanish to anyone in Peru or Spain, immediately they were like, oh my gosh, you speak Spanish, that's great. So it's definitely a learning experience and it's really fun to be able to connect that way.
And then like just one small thing to add, but I've noticed a lot of, or at least like in France, maybe in other places, there's like a stereotype that like Americans only speak English. So like I think it's good to like try to break that stereotype and like try to like make yourself like speak another language, even if like it's a little broken, just to like, put yourself out there, even if it's kind of embarrassing.
Right, I totally agree. It's definitely a learning experience and it's one of the best learning experiences you can ever get.
Couldn't agree with you more. And when you come back, so show you speak another language, not just when you are abroad, but when you come back too. So when you are in the United States, find opportunities to demonstrate, to show that you are bilingual. It's so important abroad and here too.
Mm-hmm, for sure. And I'm sure everyone in the language departments too can kind of help guide you to those opportunities too, if I'm assuming correctly.
Yeah, so I work in the Global Learning Office, so does Hannah. And we are like the student workers in there. And so basically we start the process with all these different students where they're like, there's so many different kinds of students that come into the office. They're like, some of them will come in and they're like, I have no idea where I want to go, but like, I can go to a different country. Wow, that's so cool. And so then we start out from square one. And so we figure out like where they want to go, when they want to go, all that stuff. Or we have other students that come in and they're just like, I have this very specific program that I want to do, but I don't know what courses work for that. So we start out with that. So it all depends on where the student is at. But you can start our advising process by going to our global at cord.edu website, and then you can set up a Navigate appointment on Navigate, and with any of our student workers. So there's 4 of us, and then Parker Flom, which is the Assistant Director of Study Away. And then we just start the process of getting you to go abroad or figure out if you want to go, where you want to go, and when.
If I may add to that, in the case of Spanish, just Spanish, not other languages, come talk to me first so that we have an idea of what options you have, what language objectives you have. You could go directly to that office, but if you want to have a conversation with me before you go to that office, I'm more than glad to help, okay?
There's a panel or a info session next week for Spanish Studies Abroad, the programs that are initiated or associated with that organization. And that is, I believe, on the 17th in the afternoon. And so you can find more information about that on the Instagram, I think the Spanish Instagram, or contact Parker as well for information about that, or the Global Learning Office. So if you're interested in that. But yeah, otherwise, thanks for coming out today. Thanks, Emery, for hosting and emceeing this event.